When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another. I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Hello and welcome to the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I'm Vicky.
I'm Rachel.
We're back again.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It is officially 2025.
Oh my God.
We are in the full throes of Midwest winter.
Yes.
I woke up this morning and was like, we cannot win because we actually rescheduled our last recording session and then everyone got sick.
Yep.
And this morning I woke up and it was like
virus.
snowing.
Yeah, it's snowing.
Cool. Great.
A lot.
Love that.
It is white outside.
Love that. Great way to ring in the new year.
My kids are mad at me.
Why?
Arthur hates the snow. He hates it. He doesn't like that it's like cold and wet. So he dragged me over to the window this morning and he's like, it's snowing.
Oh, it's totally your fault.
I'm like, I didn't do it. I would turn it off if I could.
Fix this.
I'm like, I don't want to live here.
Is it like a sensory thing? Like he just doesn't
I think
like.
so.
Yeah,
because he doesn't like the rain either. He doesn't like the sound of it. It makes him really nervous.
Do they not? Is he not one to go out and play in the snow?
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he loves playing outside, but as soon as it's like rainy or snowy, he's like, that's a lot. I'm not doing that.
He's just a princess.
Yeah, he's like, that's too gross. Ew, that's gross.
No.
That's honestly more true than you even know. He is a princess.
Oh
he's
my
my
gosh.
pretty princess.
Did you have a good holiday break?
It was okay.
Yeah.
You know, it was okay. Little kids in winter equals sick.
Yeah.
So I've been like sick on and off for like the entire time.
Yeah, I've definitely managed to avoid all of that. It's the benefits of living by yourself and being able to work from home is like self-containment. It's great. And I frankly was on vacation for from work for 2.5 weeks during the holidays.
Sure.
So I really was not.
You were busy on your vacation though.
Oh my gosh.
There is no rest for the wicked
Ain't
or
no
the
rest for
Geminis.
wicked. I did find out we're getting Martin Luther King Day off this year though.
That's wonderful.
Pretty exciting.
Good.
Because there is this stretch at the beginning of the year for 3 months where there's just no holidays. So you don't really get any time off work unless you work for
annoying.
the state or the government or whatever.
Right.
Those bank holidays.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are going to move right along. We know what you guys are here for.
Yeah.
It's not for us talking about the weather and work.
It is. This isn't the weather podcast?
This is not the weather podcast. It's the murder podcast.
Cold winds moving in from the south.
So if this is your first time listening, a special 2025 hello to you.
Hi.
But we are going to head over to the newsroom.
Fit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad.
So this is your first New Year with us, I think. Transition into... You've actually been on the show almost a year, I think.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is super cool.
It's right around this time.
Yay.
So one of the things that I like to do in the new year, especially for our Illinois friends, is I like to talk about some of the new laws that are going into effect 2025.
Cool.
And I don't know if this is a new resource or if they've been around for a long time, but there is this Illinois Municipal League that just puts out a list of all the stuff.
Oh, that's so helpful.
Which I feel like has been hard to find just like a complete list. And
totally.
I'm not going to go over everything because there's a ton of stuff. But I do specifically like to look at the changes in like crime and punishment and policing, like those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And there is a handful of things that are included this year. So, and again, this is specific to Illinois. So one of the things, not crime related, but we're officially up to $15 an hour.
Woo!
And they passed the like honesty and pay thing where they have to post
I did see that.
a reasonably accurate wage on any job posting for jobs in Illinois or that will be worked in part in Illinois. So like if the company is based in Illinois, but they're remote, like they have to post it on their job postings.
Good.
Which is pretty cool. Let me get to...
That's crazy that wasn't already a law.
I know.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah, that was a big thing. It's part of the Equal Pay Act. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff, ton of labor stuff, wage payment. Well, there were some random things. I was looking through this last night. Okay, this is... That's animal adoption. Oh, here we go. Police officers. This one I thought was really useful, I would say. So it has to do with sexual assault evidence. And it says that it provides that except in certain medical examiner or coroner investigations, whenever a person's DNA profile is collected due to the person being a victim of a crime, as identified by law enforcement, that specific profile collected in conjunction with that criminal investigation shall not be entered into any DNA database. Provides that nothing in this provision shall be interpreted to contradict rules and regulations developed by the FBI relating to National DNA Index system.
That was not already a law. They were just taking victims' DNA and uploading it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know necessarily that's what they were doing, but they did not have a protection in place to prevent doing that.
Wow.
I can't say they may have. I actually don't know if that's
insane.
A problem or not. But
wow.
So, and that's for, again, victims' DNA.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it is a criminal or like a suspect or whatever, like that all gets.
Well, I don't like that one bit.
Yeah. So, well, now they can't do that anymore.
Wow.
There's a Crime Victims Compensation Act change.
Oh.
Allowing that, amends the Juvenile Court Act of 1987 to provide that law enforcement agencies may disclose law enforcement reports and records to the Attorney General to comply with the Crime Victims Compensation Act. So I think before they were having, because it's juvenile records, they were having issues maybe sending that over for that purpose because it was like a protected
that makes
thing.
Sense. So just kind of like infrastructure, making it easier.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. There was also a section in here about autism training, which I thought was kind of
I'm getting
interesting.
training?
No.
Yes.
Not for autistic people.
Oh my God.
But for police. Aw. Yeah. What do you mean, aw? That's a good thing.
I wanted training.
So basically, it provides that the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board shall develop or approve a course to assist law enforcement officers in identifying and appropriately responding to individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
Oh, good.
Modifies what may be included. I agree. Yeah, so basically it is more of an advisory thing. It does require them to provide the option to do that, but it's also talking about providing extra resources and like coming up with like a standard of review type thing. Good. So that's pretty good.
That is good.
That's pretty solid. There's nothing too major this year. And good. Illinois, typically, I would say between Illinois and New York, really are kind of like the forefront of crime and punishment policies.
Oh, really?
Stuff like that. Yeah, we make a lot of big changes before a lot of other people.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I always like to take a... What?
I said, okay, Illinois.
Yeah. So I also like to take
I love that.
a look at some of this. Yeah, there was some stuff about the Adult Redeploy Illinois program, which has to do with releasing offenders and changing the word offenders to justice impacted individuals.
What?
And that's like part of the bail stuff too, like eliminating bail. That all happened last year.
Okay.
This is the one that I also wanted to highlight as somebody who works in the legal world.
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of interesting. Pretrial services department.
Yeah.
Basically, we don't have that. So
What?
It establishes in the judicial branch of state government an office to be known as the Office of Statewide Pretrial Services. So basically an office that will handle all of the pretrial service stuff. They did not have a separate office.
Didn't have one?
No. And this is like if you need an attorney representation, like stuff like that.
Why would
they
we
now
not
have an office for that.
That's crazy.
It's just it was just handled, I think, under like the clerk's office maybe, but they need like a
so
dedicated. It was handled
separate.
Yes, it just
got it.
Now we'll have people focused on just that. Anyway,
yeah, that sounds like it would have been a good idea from like a long time ago.
I agree.
All of these are like, hey, we did it, and everyone's like, yeah.
So just stuff to look be on the lookout for.
Be on the lookout.
We are going to move over to Netflix and Kill, which is this week. The Curious Case of Natalia Grace.
Oh my
Part
God.
3. Did you watch it? Did you get
No.
around to watching it? You said you told me like a week ago.
I know,
I'm
but
watching
I had
it tonight.
norovirus.
No, you literally like we're watching it tonight, and I was like, okay, done. All right.
And then I didn't.
Rachel. Okay. So for those who don't know, you should. It's crazy. This is the craziest story. Curious Case of Natalia Grace begins as a story of a young girl who was adopted from Ukraine to this after an even larger like series of unfortunate events. This family called the Barnetts, who were like awful to her and all of this abuse, and there was some crazy shit going on there. They didn't think she was actually a child. They thought she was an adult.
Yeah, there were all these comparisons to the movie The Orphan. Like, is she really an adult pretending to be a child?
Yeah. Oh, and also she's a little person.
Right.
So she has certain medical needs that are not being met or taken care of. And she's kind of, turns out she's actually a child, gets re-aged by the courts, et cetera, all this crazy shit happens. Season 2, by that point, she had been adopted by this family called the Mans family. And they are like...
the cult people.
Yes. So they're religious.
Yeah.
This is something, when we talked about season 2 that I mentioned, is they're the kind of like religious that does like the laying of hands, speaking in tongues,
weird
type stuff.
Theatrical.
Yeah. And they have like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 adopted kids. I don't know, something crazy.
Great.
Yeah, in that household. But she legally gets adopted by these people, is living there. She says she's doing great. She's finally with a family that loves her. And then like the reveal of season 2 is this phone call that production gets at the very end of the season. They play it from the Manses. That's like, she's evil. She's the devil. She's doing this shit again. She needs to get out of our house.
Catch a break.
Blah, 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 blah.
She's like, guys, can we all eat together as a family?
Also,
like, get out.
In season 2, she like confronts her original adopted. Did you not watch season 2 either?
No.
I thought you were like totally caught up.
No, I only watched season 1.
Oh, okay. So in season 2, she like confronts Mike. I think his name is Michael Barnett. In an interview that they recorded. It's wild. The whole thing is wild.
Beat his ass.
It's crazy, dude. Season 3, what we have all been waiting for after that phone call drop of season 2. It's a four-part series that also has now like gotten the spin-off series just called The Curious Case of, and it's like all the different cases.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, that will have been on air for a little bit. It looks
really good.
Looks pretty good. Okay. So there is some I messaged you this. I was like, everyone in this fucking story is weird. They are all weird. Everybody
it seems
is
like
weird.
Tiger King level of like, where did you find all these people?
Except for this family that is trying to help her. So she's living with the Manses. They have now called production and been like, she's evil. She needs to get out of the house. Production shows up to start interviewing them like a week later. And they're like, no, it's all good. We were just having a moment. Well, turns out Natalia has started a relationship with a man who lives in the UK, whose name is, I think, Neil.
Okay.
Who has been telling her, like, you're in a fucking cult.
Yeah.
And then they start doing an investigation into the Manses, who seem to have some allegations of like child abuse.
Oh my God.
And basically stealing the Social Security income from like the kids that they're adopting.
Wow.
Because it sounds like they might go specifically for like kids who have a disability of some kind.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
There's allegations of them hitting Natalia and that they're actually controlling her.
That's disgusting.
And so when they're sitting on camera, the people who are doing the interviewing are like, no, there's clearly, because Natalia is telling us one thing one day, and then when she's sitting in front of the camera with the Manzas next to her, she is saying something. She's like, it's all good. Everything's good. Right. So then there's this whole thing going on. She's like being punished for having this relationship with this guy, Neil.
Right.
She reaches out to, I don't know if you remember in season 1, but before she had the Barnetts and she was like being shopped around to these other families, there was that one family that
the
were
nice ones.
Yeah, that had like the same type of dwarfism that she has.
Yep. Yeah, what happened to them?
And they wanted to adopt her, and there was like, all of a sudden it was like, no, you can't. And they had spent a lot of time with her or whatever. Okay. She reaches out to them, Natalia, and is like, I need your help. I need you to like save me.
I'm in a cult. Help.
Basically. They fly down. Well, they drive. They drive down to wherever she was at, which is in a different state.
Yeah.
And she basically, when they are at a church service, excuses herself to go to the bathroom, goes onto the parking lot, and they save her. They rescue her. She gets in the car and they drive off.
Yay, Natalia.
Well.
Oh no.
She also, there is like this talk of her having RADS, which is like reactive. It has to do with
angry.
abandonment.
Yes.
Something, but it is like a mental
disorder.
health. Yeah.
Yep.
And so she gets to the new house. Everything's like kind of good, but then she's still like talking to, what's her name? Cynthia. I think her name is Cynthia Mans, maybe. The mom. The mom that her adopted mom. Talking to, and her adopted dad.
No.
They are still like the payees on her Social Security. She's still like sending them money and like.
Oh my God, Natalia.
You know, so it's clear that it's this very controlling thing.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even know. So they now follow the struggle in the house with her. Eventually some shit happens where she's like, no, I'm fucking done. Oh, it's the tax thing. All of a sudden they're like, well, Mr. Taxman is going to come knocking, and they have. She had made like thousands of dollars from appearances and stuff that the Manses had taken and like spent on this trailer in Tennessee or something.
Oh my God.
And anyway, there comes a breaking point where she's like, I'm fucking done with you.
Good.
And it seems now she is progressing towards good things.
Good.
I will say. But it is just like the wildest story.
Yeah,
it's insane.
This poor girl.
Yeah. You need to catch up because it really just is insane. Yes, because frankly, I think had things been done correctly in the beginning, like she would not have developed some of these mental health things that are now like fucking her up. Right. Basically.
Right. I mean, that's a lot for a little kid to go through.
You know, there is like, she definitely needs therapy.
Oh, yeah.
But she's got to be ready for that. Like, that's like, you know, there's some like deprogramming that has to happen. Yeah. And like, I don't know. It is just a wild.
Oh my God.
Wild story. Thoughts?
That shit is crazy.
Thoughts before we move on?
That shit is crazy.
I know. I have literally spent all morning that we've been here like explaining plots to movies and shit. The last like 45 minutes. So I'm sorry if that went on too long.
No, I love it. She told us about The Substance.
So good.
Love it.
So good.
You're my favorite movie reviewer. I trust no one else.
I could do a synopsis in like 10 minutes, but make it sound really
like,
exciting.
Okay, tell me about this before I watch it. Yes. I don't know if I want to watch it.
Yeah.
That and Does the Dog Die? I have that bookmarked on my phone.
No dogs in that movie.
Oh, okay, good. Perfect.
No pets.
Good.
I don't think. Anyway. This is that part of the show where we say content may not be appropriate for all listeners. Mm-hmm. I will definitely be talking about murder.
Yep, murder in mine too, for sure.
I don't know where this topic came to me from, but I wanted to talk about writers.
Yeah.
Writers are just a different breed of people. No, I'm kidding. I know some people who are writers.
Did you ever do like creative writing?
Yeah. I wanted to be a writer for a really long time.
Me too.
I was originally an English major when I went into college and wanted to teach, but then I didn't. I was like, I'm not going to like doing this for a long time.
No
so
way.
I switched to graphic design. But I am definitely a reader.
Yep.
And there are definitely some like tortured writers
Oh, yeah.
out there, which is interesting. Especially, I finished writing this episode before watching The Whale.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about this earlier. And in that movie, he's like an English teacher, like a virtual English teacher. But there is this big emphasis on writing and reconnecting with his daughter by getting her to like write something and how much and I was like, damn. How poignant. That was not, it was not like intentional. But anyway, so we are going to talk about some writers who are also criminals, sometimes before, sometimes after. It's kind
evil
of
authors.
sometimes during.
Yeah.
Like I know there's been cases of people like writing books about the murders as they happen or like the crimes as they happen.
by O.J. Simpson.
Oh my God. Yeah. But that was after the fact.
Yep.
He did the thing.
Yep.
Allegedly.
Yep.
He was found not guilty, we have to say, for but he was found civilly responsible.
And by me.
I mean, he's dead now.
Okay,
so,
well, he still did that.
you know, well, I'm just saying, like, I guess it doesn't really fucking matter. Anyway,
Matters to me.
I want to talk about, I found this really interesting case about this guy named Jack Unterweger. Have you ever heard of him before?
No.
This is, I'm
so excited.
Wild. Okay. So, a lot of this takes place in Austria.
That's what I was going to say. That's quite the last
As
name.
Unterweger? Oh my God, they're all like that.
Love
Just
it.
wait. Unterweger was born in August 1950 to a Viennese woman named Theresia. It's reported that Unterweger was the product of an affair that his mother had with an American soldier who was like stationed over there. Because this was in 1950. So
Right.
like this, there was still some occupation after World War II. Like
There's
they remained over there.
occupation all year round.
Yeah, well, yes. But like serious occupation. Like,
Yeah.
so during her pregnancy, Theresia was arrested and imprisoned for fraud.
Oh.
Unterweger was born shortly after her release from prison.
Oh, okay, good.
He was not like born in prison.
Phew.
But when he was 3, Theresia was arrested again, and Unterweger was sent to live with his grandfather, who recruited the child to help him steal farm animals.
Oh, my God.
There is already, it's almost like
This poor
from
kid.
birth. Yeah, there is already this trend.
Never had a chance.
Yeah. He was sent to various
Stealing
foster
livestock.
homes. So there's that. And this sort of like kickstarts his own life of crime. He was arrested and convicted 16 times for mostly theft-related crimes, including robbery, car theft, and fraud, all before he was 16. There was also reports that Unterweger was involved in some sort of like pimping related crimes,
God damn
like
it.
sex work.
With the farm animals?
Not with no, they were
Get your sheep here.
They were human women.
Oh, okay.
Human women.
Boring.
But yeah, he apparently was pimping for a little while.
Ew.
And this all happens before it just escalates sort of into full-blown murder.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So heads up.
Oh, great.
This escalation finally came to a head in December 1974 when Unterweger was driving with his girlfriend, and the two of them spotted 18-year-old Margaret Schaefer walking and invited her to hop in the car for a ride. She got into the car. I can only assume she saw another woman in the car and was like, this is fine.
Yep.
Because, again, 74, like, hitchhiking was not uncommon.
No, it was totally common. But even still, I think a single girl probably would have at least hesitated to get in the car with just a guy. But since the girl was there, that sucks.
Yeah. But it didn't take long before Unterweger attacked Margaret, saying, according to The Independent, quote, at the moment of killing, he had seen his mother reflected in Schaefer's face, and out of rage for the way he had been abandoned, he throttled her up with her bra, end quote.
Whatever. Go to therapy.
So...
Like, don't piss me off.
So upon entering the car, Unterweger punched Margaret in the face and then tied her up and took her to the woods with the two of them like left the car. The girlfriend stayed in the car and just waited for them to come back. Now, according to Oxygen, quote, his girlfriend at the time would later say that when Unterweger returned 10 minutes later, he came back alone and carrying a steel whip covered in blood and hair.
What could this mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's not clear because I don't really see this mentioned anywhere. It's not clear if like she went to police, like saw that and went to police later, or like how that happened. But he does get arrested.
Yeah.
And convicted.
Good.
Of Margaret's murder.
Oh my gosh, poor Margaret.
Which got him a life sensence in 1976.
Good.
Okay.
The end.
Now, yeah, right. I told you this was going to be short. Now, upon entering prison, Unterweger was determined to become a reformed man.
Oh,
he was
God.
like, I'm going in, I'm going to like do the work on myself. Self-reflection.
Margaret doesn't care what you do.
So he's like, I'm going to become a reformed man despite being sent to what has been called the toughest prison in Austria.
Oh, God.
Which I can only imagine.
Oh, my God.
Part of this included Unterweger taking up writing, specifically short stories, poems, and plays. But the thing that would see the most critical success was an autobiography titled Purgatory or the Trip to Prison, Report of a Guilty Man. In his book, Unterweger discusses his life and crimes committed, explaining his reason for murder was his unresolved issues with his mother and a repeat cycle of abandonment. You're not buying into that at all?
No, it's always mommy's fault. Go to therapy.
You're just mad because you're a mom and you're like, this is what my kids are going to say about me one day.
No, they're going to be like, that's why I'm the president. My mommy inspired me.
And here's my brother vice president.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be so cute. Little matching suits. P and VP.
I mean, they're going to be like in their 30s, but...
So cute.
Sure.
I love it.
So... This book was released to the general public for sale and found almost immediate success.
Oh, my God.
Critics saw it as a prime example of prisoner rehabilitation. They were like, look at this guy. He's done all this self-reflecting.
So
he's totally rehabilitated, which is, I mean, that's the point of prison.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be the point of prison is rehabilitation.
Right.
But...
I don't really see what him writing a book has to do with anything.
It's proof.
Are you doing charity? Did you give the money to her family?
Maybe.
I don't think that you did.
A historian named Peter Humer told The Independent that, quote, Unterweger represented the great hope of intellectuals that through the verbalization of problems, you can somehow get to grips with them. We wanted to believe him very badly, end quote. So they were like... Look at model prisoner.
Reformed sinner.
Suddenly, while Unterweger was serving his life sentence for murder, the public at large outside of the prison truly believed that he had been rehabilitated and he'd done the work to be rehabilitated. So in 1985, there was a huge push by the public for the Austrian president to issue a pardon and allow Unterweger to reintegrate into society.
Okay.
A petition was circulated and garnered signatures from many folks who were like famous writers and intellectuals. They were like, absolutely, we can tell.
Oh, dear.
But when the petition was sent to the president at the time, Rudolf Kirschlager.
That's cute.
Kirschlager, yeah. He refused, citing the 15-year minimum imposed by the courts.
Okay.
However, once that 15 years was up, it didn't really seem like there was any issues.
Okay.
So Unterweger was released in May 1990. Now, obviously, by this point, his autobiography had been out for a while. He had pretty much become successful while being in prison.
Right.
So upon his release, Unterweger was somewhat of a celebrity.
Wow.
And so he came out. His release was punctuated by a press conference that he held before he started moving through like the talk show circuit. I
hate this.
And he was like doing interviews about his book and specifically making commentary on prisoner rehabilitation. Like he kind of became this expert.
Yeah.
Having been a prisoner and been rehabilitated. So he's like a celebrity, like straight up celebrity. So he decided to cash in on this newfound fame by transitioning from murderer to crime journalist, even getting hired out by some of the top media outlets in Austria.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They're like, who's got more expertise than a literal murderer?
I'm so annoyed.
Because also, like, he had been sentenced and served his time. It's not like people were like, maybe he didn't do the murder. No, he fully fucking did it.
Did it, but they were just like, he's really sorry.
Yes.
He's so sorry.
Yeah, it was an oopsie.
Oh my God.
Now, the timing of this could not have been better either, because all of a sudden there was a trend of women disappearing from the red light district in Vienna. And police did not really seem to have any leads on why or like who was doing this. So the news outlet sent Unterweger to cover the case and see what he could find out.
Oh my God.
One of the first interviews he did was with a top police official who said, quote, "Unfortunately, it hasn't been resolved successfully because despite many investigative efforts, we haven't made any breakthroughs so far," end quote. According to Oxygen, Vienna at the time actually had a very low crime rate. So
I was going to say.
This like apparent serial murderer or a serial attacker was like,
we're a little worried about this, guys.
It was baffling.
Yeah.
Because it really just
Who
was.
could this be?
Yeah.
Who could it be? Who?
Yeah. Because also, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was at this time, but over there, like their red light districts and stuff are pretty regulated.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they're pretty like safe-ish.
You know.
There's a lot of trafficking, but yeah.
Well, yes. But like violent crime.
Right.
I would say, murder, like straight up murder.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So they were like, we don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Authorities would finally have something to investigate when bodies began turning up, starting with the discovery of 25-year-old Sane Moitzel in May 1991 in some woods in Vienna.
Oh, some woods, you say?
Some woods.
Oh, interesting. Where have we seen this before?
Moitzel was found partially hidden by some branches. They make a point of being like, it was clear that whoever was trying to hide her body was not necessarily trying to hide her body because it was very like sparsely covered.
Right. Yeah, he didn't like dig a grave.
No. It was just like some extra
with
sticks
his little author hands.
He just like chucked on her body.
Right.
So she was found partially hidden by some branches. She was naked, having been strangled with her leotard, stockings, and bra. Just 3 days later, police found another body, that of 25-year-old Karen Araglu, also in the woods, and also having been strangled with her leotard. However, they discovered Araglu after it had rained, which unfortunately washed away any physical evidence that may have been there and been helpful. Not long after, the bodies of 32-year-old Regina Prem and 35-year-old Sylvia Zagler were discovered in similar circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. Meanwhile, Unterweger, living his crime journalist life, is sent off on a new assignment, crime in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, no.
And the differences between like the US and European attitudes towards sex work, which I'm actually like, that could have been really interesting.
Very interesting.
Really interesting. Because it is like
night and day.
Yes. So Unterweger was able to interview some police officers who allowed him to go on a ride-along of the various red light districts in LA.
That's crazy.
This allowed him direct access to the sex workers in the area, whom he interviewed for their perspective on things. While in LA, you'll like this, Unterweger stayed at the Cecil Hotel.
No way!
Yeah, which the true crime obsessed people will know that this has been like the Cecil Hotel is home to some really strange
my God
things, including notorious Night Stalker Richard Ramirez having taken residence there for a bit, and the mysterious death of Eliza Lamb.
Yes.
Cecil Hotel is like one of those places.
They're thinking about reopening it.
Well, it's open, but
is it now?
It's current. No. So it's open, but it's not a hotel. It is like low income housing.
That's right.
Yeah. It's been that for a few years. It's not low income housing. There's a different term for that because it's like a homeless shelter, I guess. But like
so kind of hostily.
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay, that makes sense.
That's what they've been using it for. Yeah. So that's where he was staying. But something weird started happening while Unterweger was staying in LA. Sex workers started disappearing again.
Wow, that is strange.
So weird. It's so weird. Police would discover the bodies of 35-year-old Shannon Exley, 33-year-old Irene Rodriguez, and 26-year-old Peggy Jean Booth during the summer of 1991 while he was in LA. All of the women had been strangled with their own bras in what appeared to be the same knot each time. This signaled to the police that the same person likely committed all three of these murders and that they were looking for a serial killer. Meanwhile, Unterweger finishes his reporting in LA and travels back to Austria.
And they're like, guys, the murders stopped. That is
weird.
So
it is such a weird coincidence. So weird. So he fucks off back to Austria. By this time, investigators, they've been looking into these murders in Austria. They even like pinpointed Unterweger as a possible suspect.
Wow.
But he was placed under surveillance until he left for the U.S. and police were like, there was literally nothing. Yeah. Right. Well, in like the surveillance they had before he left, they were like, there's nothing. Okay. Nothing connecting him at all.
He's boring.
Yeah. He's just like doing regular life stuff. Yeah. So there wasn't anything that they could arrest him for. By the time he returned to Austria, another reporter, Hans Breitegger, had started investigating a series of sex worker disappearances in Graz, Vienna, which was like, it was like 120, 160 miles away from where he was at. The police had discovered the bodies of 39-year-old Brunhilde Masser, 39-year-old Heidi Hammerer, and 35-year-old Elfriede Schrempf, all of which had been strangled to death with their own bras. Upon doing more research into these murders, as well as Unterweger's past murder, Breitegger saw the connection with the method of strangling because it matched the one that he had been convicted for.
Right.
And he becomes convinced that these had all been committed by the same person.
Yes.
So he calls police and is like, hey,
just so you know,
I found this stuff out.
A little tip for you.
I wanted to tell you, you should be looking at Unterweger for these murders in Graz. And again, this is from Oxygen. Quote, police in Graz began canvassing the city's red light district with a photo of Unterweger and found 3 sex workers who confirmed they'd seen him in the area. One woman even had a harrowing story about meeting a man driving a white Ford Mustang and wearing a white suit matching Unterweger's description, who told her he was a reporter, then took her into the woods and handcuffed her. But just as her terror mounted, he uncuffed her and drove her back into town, end quote.
Ew. Power struggle.
Yeah. He was also known for like his wearing, especially in his interviews, like wearing a white suit with I think a red carnation maybe,
what a freak.
Was like his signature
Miami Vice
look. Ew. Yeah, the white Ford Mustang just like caps trash. Yeah. So this story was almost exactly what had happened to all of the other women. Although they met obviously a much more grim end.
Right.
There was another body that had turned up in Prague, that of Blanka Bachkova, who had been murdered with like the same modus operandi.
Right.
And her murder matched Unterweger being in Prague at that
my
time.
God. He's like, that was my vacation. Yeah. I was doing writer stuff,
research, doing research. So now police have enough evidence to be able to at least issue a search warrant and an arrest warrant for Unterweger. But when they go to his residence to arrest him, he and his teenage girlfriend at the time,
oh my God,
whose name was Bianca Mrak, they had already fled the country. They were like headed back for Miami, Florida.
Oh my God. Yeah, because he's wearing that white suit. Miami Vice.
He was ready. He was ready. So they leave Vienna. They leave Austria. They go to Miami, Florida. When they arrive, they rent a room in South Beach, but they were a couple weeks later tracked down and captured by U.S. Marshals.
Good.
Unterweger is then extradited back to Austria, where he would stand trial in Graz in April 1994. Now, although they had spent tons of time investigating and making all of these links between the murders, the prosecution's case was largely circumstantial.
Yeah.
Like they did not really have any physical evidence.
Right.
The big pieces of evidence they had were the method of killing and some receipts that they had uncovered during the search of his home that proved he was near the locations of the murders when they happened.
Okay.
Which is like, I mean, it's not nothing, but it is not a whole case.
Right.
Does not a whole case make.
Right.
So the only piece of physical evidence that they had was a strand of hair that had been recovered from his car that had been determined to belong to Blanka Bachkova. That's it. That's the only piece of physical evidence they had.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Unterweger did take the stand in his own defense during the trial, which some people were worried about because he is like very charismatic. Obviously, he's had a lot of media training.
So was Ted Bundy. They put him in jail too.
Right. Did he take the stand in his own defense? Do you remember?
Yes.
Oh God.
The judge at the end when he convicted him was like, it's really a shame because you're so like charismatic and wonderful.
Oh,
you would have made a
God.
great lawyer. They were all sucking his dick. Like so stupid.
Sorry. The law's the
Ted Bundy.
law. I wish I could do something different.
That's literally what it was.
That's fucking wild.
literally what it was.
That's crazy.
He was not that smart.
Well, ultimately, in a 6-2 decision.
Wow.
Yeah, because you don't have to be unanimous in Austria, but it was 6-2, which is higher than I would have assumed. The jury convicted Unterweger of 9 of the 11 murders.
Wow.
2 of the bodies had been decomposed enough that they were not able to determine a cause of death, although it is still believed he's responsible.
Right.
Unterweger expressed that he was innocent and he would be seeking an appeal.
He was like, guys.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was just crime reporting.
Yeah.
Research. It was all research.
Yeah. I'm very hands-on with my research.
Yeah. In June 1992, Unterweger was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Good.
That evening, when he returned to Graz Karlau prison, Unterweger hung himself using shoelaces and a cord from a pair of tracksuit pants.
Oh.
Using the same knot that
Oh
he
my
had
God.
used to commit all of the murders.
We get it. You're an author. He's like, the readers will really love this little detail. Well, good.
The sad thing is that under Austrian law, his guilty verdict isn't considered legally binding because he had expressed to the courts an intention to appeal, but died before he was able to complete the appeal. So it's almost like not, because it wasn't confirmed by the Supreme Court, it's like not a finalized verdict. So
that's lame.
Technically, it's not legally binding. And although it might not be legally
binding by
correct,
heart.
yeah, his guilty verdict is generally accepted as factual. I would say. In total, Unterweger murdered 11 women in the year following his release from prison for murder and writing a book. 12 in total.
At least.
Wild.
That's crazy.
That is the story of...
That's a good one. What a freak.
I just can't believe that they successfully... Like, him writing a book was enough to, like, successfully petition him to get out of jail.
That pisses me off.
Because he only served 15
so
years
bad.
for murder.
They're like, it's a really good book.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like accidental murder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
it was like,
I did do that, but I was really mad. I was having a bad day.
but she looked like my mom.
Oh my God. Ew.
Yeah. Writers.
Okay, so you picked authors who committed crimes,
Yes.
which is an amazing topic.
There's more out there than you would think.
There's so many.
There's more out there than you would think.
So many.
Yeah. I was
It's
surprised when I was
crazy.
looking. I was like, damn, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And like this case that I picked, honestly, I picked it because I know it pretty well. But when I looked into it, there was more that I didn't know. So I was like, ooh, very cool. But there are, like we just said, there are lots of sketchy authors who easily could have made the cut. Stephanie Meyer, author of the Twilight series, may not have been charged with any actual crimes. But did you know that Jacob is her brother's name?
Okay.
That's disgusting. She cast him as a romantic lead. That's really gross.
mean-
And also, he tried to fuck that baby.
Just because it's her brother's name,
That's weird.
Jacob is a pretty normal name.
But it's her brother's name.
I'm just
That's
saying.
gross.
I'm not saying, listen, maybe I've been desensitized by watching too much Game of Thrones. And I'm like, incest is cool, baby.
Welcome to the Incest Podcast.
No, I will not. No, definitely
No, I think
not.
that's really creepy.
It is kind of
really
weird. It is
creepy.
kind of weird.
If terrible writing was a crime, the nation's penitentiaries would be chock full of the Stephanie Meyers, the Dan Browns, the James Freys.
I like Dan Brown.
Yeah, no. And the Sarah J. Maas. But today's subject did something much worse than poor plot production, and her terrible crime would follow her until the ends of her days. I'm talking, of course, about Anne Perry. When I texted her, she was like, "You're basic."
That's not what I said. That's not, for the record, I said, I knew you were going to cover her.
It's an interesting
I know.
case.
I know.
And it's a good movie. Now, even novice true crimers might already be aware of Anne Perry's case, especially if you enjoy the films of Peter Jackson. That's right. She was in Lord of the Rings. No, I'm just kidding. Heavenly Creatures, released in 1994.
I've not seen that.
It's really, really good. It's really good.
Okay.
Peter Jackson co-wrote it with his partner, Fran Walsh, and then he directed it. The film starred a young Melanie Linsky and a then unknown Kate Winslet before they were both gigantic stars.
I don't know who Melanie Linsky is.
Yes, you do. Look her up. I'm trying to think. Of course, I'm like a huge fan of her, and I'm like, what has she been in? She's in that Yellow Jackets show.
I never watched that.
I
do know her. Yeah, I do know her, but that's not. Yeah. And she did some like Portlandia, I think.
Yes, I think so too. And she's from New Zealand, I think.
Yes.
So she was like local, but I love her. She's like been acting consistently for like her whole life.
Yeah.
She's so good.
She's in Over the Garden Wall.
Yes. Yeah, she's the bird.
Yeah. Okay.
Yup.
Got it.
She's one of those where it's like when you see her, it's like, oh, yeah, I've seen her in 5,000 things.
Yes.
But it's like maybe not the name. And then like Kate Winslet, obviously Titanic, whatever. Kate Winslet is so talented.
She was just in that series on
The Mayor of
Max.
Easttown.
No. Oh, that one too. That was fantastic.
That was really
Mayor of
good.
Easttown was really good. No, it's called The Chancellor.
Oh, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I think so. I know what you're talking about. I used to have like Audible when I worked, when I was pregnant. I had nothing to do all day because, who works at work? Not I. I had Audible and I would like sneak my headphone in my ear and just listen to audiobooks all day. Oops, sorry, hit the microphone. But I bought an audiobook of the children's book Matilda by Roald Dahl, who I have tattooed on my ankle. And I didn't know that it was narrated by Kate Winslet. And she didn't just read it. She did all of the voices. They were so startlingly good that I didn't know it was just her until like the end of chapter 2.
The Regime. That's the name of it. The Regime.
That's what it is.
It's really good.
The Chancellor sounded right, honestly.
It's close.
That's probably something.
She plays a Chancellor in the movie or in the show. That's why.
Yeah, you're right.
It was really good.
That's
anyway,
funny.
Off topic.
Kate Winslet's amazing. The movie did exceptionally well, with one reviewer even comparing its quality to another film released the same year, which was Forrest Gump.
Oh.
And it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly I think is pretty well deserved.
Yeah.
Like it's a little slow in a couple parts, but it's Peter Jackson, who I don't think you're a Lord of the Rings fan, are you?
I like Lord of the Rings.
You do like Lord of the Rings? Okay.
Better than Marvel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do like some Marvel though. If you haven't seen the movie, I'll give you a cute little synopsis, which is handy because unlike a lot of true crime films, it's actually not that different from what happened in real life, which is nice.
Yeah.
It takes place in New Zealand, so of course the scenery and the accents are fantastic. Kate Winslet plays English teenager Juliet Hulme, who has moved from England to a town called Christchurch, New Zealand, with her parents so that her father could fill the rectory position at Canterbury University College.
Okay.
I always feel really sorry for teenagers who have to move, like middle schoolers and teenagers. I feel like that's the hardest time to move because like you've already established yourself socially. Like I feel like there's a trauma in that I think it's overlooked a lot. And this was not Juliet's first move. As a child, she had been diagnosed with tuberculosis, also traumatizing.
Yeah.
And had been shipped off to several places, including the Caribbean Isles, with the hopes that the tropical climate would heal her, which was like a pretty common belief during the times of tuberculosis.
Yes.
That like warm weather would cure you.
Reset your humors.
Right.
And,
Right. So she was like pretty destabilized.
Yeah.
When she gets there, like, so I get the feeling that when both her mother and her father were going to live in New Zealand with her. I think she kind of was like, oh, okay, like I'm going to try to set down roots here so that I don't have to leave again.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So Juliet meets and befriends fellow teenager Pauline Parker, and it turns out they had a lot in common. They both had suffered from childhood illnesses. Holm, as I said, had TB, and Parker had osteomyelitis, which I had to Google, and it's bone fungus.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Not great. It's not great.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
Bone fungus.
I don't like the idea of fungus being on the inside of me.
Me
but
neither. That's very like The Last of Us.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, I don't like that. Very Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So they both had these debilitating conditions at one point, which obviously bonded them together. I think there's like a real like childhood lost kind of element to this.
Yeah.
Now, their friendship ended up getting kind of intense. The girls formed an incredibly close bond in a very short amount of time and only seemed to want to spend time together. And they became somewhat reclusive. You see, the girls not only shared a history of disease, but a love of creative writing, which it was never really gone into. But I can imagine, like, with both osteomyelitis and tuberculosis, there's a lot of, like, you got to lay around in bed.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do but dream and read,
Yeah.
you know? So it kind of makes sense that they were into that.
Right.
So that's cool that they had that in common. So they decided to start co-authoring books, plays, and screenplays together. They both spoke often about their shared dream to, when they were old enough, move to Los Angeles and start their lives as famous authors and playwrights.
Okay.
But strangely, their shared fantasies seemed to begin to come to life, kind of without their permission, it seems. They had created a second world, a sort of secular heaven, filled with adventure and promise. Now, it started out as a fantasy, a place where they could set their novels. But to the two girls, it became very real. Eventually, they believed that they would go there when they died, that it was a real place.
Okay.
They developed their own personal religion to go with it. They were both, I mean, obviously, they lived in a town called Christchurch. Hello.
Yeah.
And her dad was a rector.
I mean, that's just Christchurch is just the name of it.
I know, but it's a very conservative area, or it was at the time.
Yeah.
Very religious, and her dad's a rector. So it's like they both grew up in this Christianity, and they rejected it, which was obviously a huge deal at the time. The two even believed that they could enter this parallel dimension through what they called spiritual enlightenment.
Okay.
They kept journals detailing their so-called trips into this utopia, the place they deemed fourth world, which, like, isn't that creative, to be honest. That's not that creative. Give it a different
what
name.
year was this?
This was 70s?
Yeah. This is still the beginning of creativeness.
I know. Well,
cut them some
still.
slack.
I don't know. Now, instead of looking at their young daughters and thinking, this sure looks like some shared psychosis, maybe we should get them some help.
You're talking about this, and I'm like, it's sounding very, what do they call that? Folie à deux? Is
Yes.
that
Yes.
like sounding very much like that.
And that's very common with young offenders. It's more likely for young offenders to latch onto somebody else because young people crave that social, not that we don't, but like, and not that we're not young. But
no, I'm not young.
No, I'm not either. My bones make so much noise.
Yeah. But I just think of those, it was
fungus.
like the sisters.
Yeah, the twins.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
That's what I was getting
I
flashes of that as you're describing this.
I believe that that's what was going on. Yeah. They were completely over-reliant on each other and were like I don't go into it a lot because like the timeline's a little weird, but like there were periods where both of them would like be minorly like hospitalized because they both were still believed to be sick. And like when one would go to the hospital, the other one would be like just destroyed. Yeah. And like, you left me. Where it's like, well, girl, I was sick. Like, very unhealthy, toxic attachment. Yeah. Which makes sense because of what they've all been through. But whatever. So, the parents should have been like, maybe we should call a doctor. But the parents were like, Who cares about the fake heaven they've been astral traveling to? Let's focus on the real issue. What if they've been lesbianing together? Oh, no.
Okay.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
again.
Priorities.
Right.
Priorities in the 70s.
Like, oh my God. Both of their families were mad religious and not super into their daughters participating in the gay agenda.
Of course.
I guess they were okay with adultery, though, because Juliet's mother had a big old affair, causing her parents to seek a divorce.
Oh, shit.
Her dad also lost his job, and
Okay.
it was implied that he might have been doing some fuck shit at work. Not like creepy shit, but like money shit.
Yeah.
So her parents were pretty much thinking they'd get the hell out of Dodge, get divorced, get their daughter away from the evil New Zealand lesbian, and start fresh back in jolly old England, but that they would have sent Juliet away to South Africa to live with relatives.
Okay.
Now, they said this was like because, again, it's like warm there, the climate, but it seems to me that they were punishing her.
Yeah.
And being like, no, well, you're not going to be a lesbian in South Africa. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not happening, girl. Of course, the girls were devastated. Now, I do have to say the true nature of their relationship is not known, and both of them as adults have denied that they were lesbians.
Okay.
And it definitely could have been just a really intense trauma bond.
Yeah.
I think both girls obviously had huge attachment issues, and they formed a really intense bond, which I think affected how they saw reality. They sincerely thought that they could physically travel to the fourth world and that when they died, they would be there together forever. But as the resident bisexual here at the True Case, at the, what are we
Do you
called?
even know what show you're on?
I was reading my paper and talking at the same time, so I got
Bad
confused.
taste. Just bad taste.
The Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I think I'm an authority. If you want to go to heaven and be with someone forever, you're gay. Sorry, you guys are gay, which I love
Yeah.
it. But like, come on, why are you denying it? Have you seen Black Mirror?
I've seen like the first season or two.
There's an episode, it's like one of the more iconic ones, I think it's in season 1, called San Junipero, where these two women, it's like super complicated, but their physical bodies, I think they're like old and have dementia. We're gonna get a ton of comments like, that's not really what happened in the episode. I forgot. Okay, I
It's been
forgot.
out for like years.
But
like,
well, I know
literally
it was a
years. Yeah.
long time ago, girl.
Yeah.
But so they've uploaded their consciousness.
I remember this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both these young, beautiful women in this
Right.
like kind of Sims-esque world
Yeah.
where it's always the 80s and it's beautiful.
Very Second Life.
Yes.
Like, very.
And that song
yeah.
is playing. Ooh, heaven.
Yeah.
Is a place. And they're together forever. And
Yes.
it's super nice because in their life they couldn't be themselves and now they can
Yeah.
forever. So it's like really sweet.
Okay.
And they're lesbians in that.
Yeah.
And every time I watch Heavenly Creatures or I think about this case, I'm like, ooh, heaven.
Oh my God.
I'm like, it's like that fucking Black Mirror episode. So
Yeah, yeah.
I believe that they were gay. It doesn't really matter, but I believe that they were gay. Anyway, so Juliet and Pauline were obviously super upset about their impending separation, so they came up with a plan. The plan was they both go to South Africa, the end.
Okay.
And also murder.
Sounds
how
good.
this plan was formed is a mystery, but it's not too hard to see how it may have come about. So Juliet's parents were the one diddling around, being unemployed and having affairs. But based on all accounts, she actually had a pretty chill relationship with them. She did not hate her parents.
Okay.
Pauline, however, hated her mother, Honora Parker, who they saw as their greatest obstacle to this life that they wanted to have. The two had a difficult relationship and were known to fight often and disagree on almost everything. She knew that, like, out of everyone, Honora would never allow her daughter to live her best gay life in South Africa. So the two little authors plotted away, and this is what they come up with. This is the 50s, not the 70s. Why did I say 70s? That was incorrect.
It even makes more sense
Yeah.
because
Super
they were not
repressed.
super creative back then.
Right. On the afternoon, of June 22nd, 1954, the two girls were like, hey, Pauline's mom, we love you and have nothing suspicious planned. Let's all go have tea together.
Okay.
So they all three went to the nearby city of Victoria Park and had tea and desserts at a tea kiosk, which sounds so cute.
Yeah.
Then they were like, hell yeah, let's work off these biscuits and scones with a refreshing afternoon walk. The tea place was located nearby, like a scenic, like wooded area, like a park. And the merry trio walked along the path, seeing the sights, and the two sort of lured her further and further into the woods.
Oh, those damn woods.
I know.
It's always about the woods.
I know. I'm like, please, I like to hike. I don't want to be finding bodies.
Yeah.
Once they were about 430 feet from view, one of the girls went, oopsie, I dropped this decorative stone I have with me for some reason. Clumsy me. Can you pick it up, Mom? Because, you know, I have like bone fungus.
Yeah.
She didn't say any of that, but that's what I'm assuming.
Okay.
So her mom was like, oh, sure, bent over to recover the stone. The two girls pulled out their makeshift murder weapon, a broken brick inside of a stocking.
Oh.
So like,
Okay.
they took turns striking Honora in the head, which took over 20 times.
Oh my God.
In later interviews, they said, we thought that we could just hit her once. But they had to keep going until she stopped
do you remember,
moving.
were they like teenagers
Yes.
at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were like 14, 15.
That's like, I mean, you have kind of a skewed version of how
Completely.
things, that's like a TV version of how things work, right? Like,
And that's exactly like, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Because once she was dead, instead of like running away together or being like, I don't know, I didn't go there, they just went back to the tea kiosk and they're like, my mom fell. And they were like, you're covered in blood.
oh my
Stupid.
God.
So the police came and just like walked down the path and they were like, there she is. Oh, and there's a fucking brick in a stocking right there. Did you girls do it? And they were like, no. Yeah. So they confessed pretty much right away. They gave up the ghost like
That's
immediately.
like instant guilt, probably. I'm sure it was a instance of like seeing it happen and being like, oh my God, what have we done?
Reality versus unreality.
Yes.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, they probably thought they could just go to their little dimension the whole time. They're like, well, who cares?
Yeah. Why am I not ascending yet?
Right. God. The same year, 1954, the two girls stood trial in Christchurch where they were both convicted of murder.
Okay.
Now, New Zealand law is kind of weird, and because this is a minor case, a lot of it was just like they were convicted. I'm like, of what? They were just convicted. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, of what kind of murder? You know, like, I wanted to know, like, first degree, second degree. They didn't really have any of that.
Places that are not the U.S. are a lot more protective of their juvenile
Right. Which is good.
defendants.
Which overall is good.
I don't think that's a terrible thing because, I mean, obviously the opinion is eventually convicted juvenile defendants will eventually get out of jail and like have to re-enter society. And the view is like they don't want that following them around necessarily.
Right.
Because now you can just get on Google and be like,
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And that exact thing comes up in this too.
yeah.
But so they were just sentenced to jail with no release date, quote, at His Majesty's pleasure.
Yep.
Whatever the fuck that means. Well, what it ended up meaning is that the two girls each served 5 years at separate prisons before being released. Parker whose mother it was, had to serve 6 months of parole afterwards, so she had to stay in New Zealand. And then after that, she was like, fuck this country. And she left.
Yeah.
She assumed a new identity, which is another thing their government will help them do.
Yes.
Which I also think is good. She lived a very normal life. I think she worked for a school. She's still alive.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Juliet Home had unconditional release, so she was able to leave the country right after she got out of jail, and she moved in with her father in Italy, also assuming a new identity.
Was she the one who was originally from? She was
England.
The English one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now in the movie, the end of the movie is the judge like ordering the two girls, like being like, you're going to jail, you're doing this and that, and you also have to never contact each other again.
Okay.
In real life, there was no such ruling. That's like a popular kind of like misconception.
Yeah.
When people talk about the case, they think that's real. It's not. There was no such ruling. Nevertheless, according to the New Zealand Post and according to the two of them, they have never communicated. And I bet they didn't.
Okay.
I bet they never talked to each other.
Well, especially if you get out and change your identity, it's like
Right. It's like, how are you going to find each other?
right.
Yeah.
Unless you make a special effort to make sure the other person knows who your new self is.
And
like,
I doubt it.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
Yeah.
The film was super successful, as I mentioned earlier, but one person did not like this movie, and her name was Anne Perry. Yeah, I mentioned her earlier. Anne was a successful novelist, having published several bestsellers in the mystery genre. Now, if you haven't figured it out, Anne Perry is actually Juliet Home, who had taken her stepfather's last name and started going by Anne. Now, so she didn't get a new identity. She just kind of made her own.
Okay.
Now, you'd think that she wouldn't like the film because it like brought back painful memories. You know, she doesn't want to see it.
Right.
But in fact, before the film, close to no one in her life knew that Mormon mystery novelist Anne Perry was actually a convicted murderer.
Wait, she's Mormon?
She converted to Mormonism.
Okay.
As soon as
Wow.
actually, both women. Not the other
Like
one was
separately?
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's LDS is Mormon.
Wait, no, the other one.
Okay.
Oh, then maybe the shit. They're a different Christian denomination.
Okay.
The ones who come to your door a lot.
Jehovah's Witness?
Yes. The other one became a Jehovah's Witness.
Gotcha.
So I think it's very
Okay.
interesting that they both rejected
Yeah.
Christianity so heavily in their youth and then as adults went back to it.
With some of the weirdest forms of Christianity.
Right. Not just like Methodist, like hanging out, you know.
Right.
Super weird,
Yeah.
but right. Which I'm like, ew.
Yeah.
So nobody in her life knew. She never told anyone about her past and would fabricate details of her life to keep her past a secret. She actually only got exposed when the movie came out and curious reporters tracked her down.
Okay.
Which is like super crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm very like bleeding heart when it comes to young offenders most of the time. I'm always like, your frontal lobe wasn't developed yet. You know, like I think we should give him a chance. But the way that she spoke to the press, like when she was like, because she was an established novelist. She had written, at the time of her death, she had published 102 books.
Okay.
So she was pretty
prolific, if anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was pretty popular.
Okay. What kind of books did she write?
Mystery. And a lot of her books had the interior theme of redemption. Redemption after you've done something wrong, which I'm like, whatever. This is a quote after her identity was revealed in 1994, and the press was like, girl, that was you. You were Kate Winslet. And she's like, that was me. She said, it seemed so unfair. Everything I had worked to achieve as a decent member of society was threatened. And once again, my life was being interrupted by someone else. It had happened in court when, as a minor, I wasn't allowed to speak, and I heard all these lies being told. And now there was a film, and nobody had bothered to talk to me. I knew nothing about it until the day before release. All I could think of was that my life would fall apart and that it might kill my mother. What about the mother you actually killed, girl?
Right.
Like, I just felt like I understand in a way, but I'm like,
right. I get where she's coming from.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry for what I've done. It was a long time ago. I've grown as a
made
person.
mistakes, or like,
right. And it's like no one contacted you. Who's Anne Perry? Juliette Holm. How would they know it was you?
Right. And
also, they don't have to.
I get where she's coming from in that she probably would not have seen the same success if she hadn't like changed her name and assumed this new identity.
Well,
but like, yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. There's like,
there were other reports where she would say like, no, I was like, I'm like mad. Sorry.
It's almost like she's upset that somebody else is cashing in on her.
That's
story.
how I feel. Yeah. Almost exactly.
Yeah. Like, where's my cut of the pie?
Yup.
Yeah. Can't have been doing that well as a crime writer.
Exactly. I'm like, whatever. And in 2017, she had been living in like Scotland. She moved to LA to more effectively promote films based on her novels. So I'm like, okay, girl, whatever. Okay. You're obviously not that afraid of notoriety.
Right.
Dumb idiot.
Right.
December 2022, she had a heart attack and died.
Wow. That was only 3 years ago.
Oh, it was actually, she had a heart attack in 2022 and died in 2023 in the hospital, aged 84. Her novel, which was the 6th in her Daniel Pitt series, was published the day after her death.
Sorry.
No, I know. I know.
Damn. Okay.
Like, girl, how can you be mad? Anyway.
That's wild.
It's super wild. So I don't like her. I get that you guys were young. Yeah. I understand. But like the way that she handled it, I honestly thought was really gross.
But then part of me is like, if you don't want to explore that part of your life or be in a place where you can take accountability for it, don't do something that's going to get you fucking famous.
Right. That's
Like,
how
don't
I
be a
feel. Like
novelist.
you could have, and the other woman like worked for a school or something, like had a very low key
She
life.
just like
but it's
went and lived her life.
You want to be famous.
Yeah.
How is that going to work out for you? It's not.
I don't know.
And then when people find out,
Damn.
you're mad.
Right.
I'm like, why are you mad?
Right.
You did it.
Right. Right.
And like, oh, people were telling all these lies and I wasn't allowed to speak. Shut up, girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great movie. I highly recommend checking it out.
Oh my gosh.
And also, if your kid's going into different realities, call a therapist. The
Yeah,
end.
1000%.
The end.
For sure. For sure. Oh my gosh.
If they're lesbians, it's fine. But if they're going into Narnia, don't let them do that.
Yeah, right. Well, before you decide to become a writer, why don't you check out this podcast?
We're the Vocal Fries. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Megan.
And we have a podcast about linguistic discrimination.
We talk about language, not being a jerk, not judging people for the way that they speak, and we try to have a good time.
We talk about things like vocal fry, swearing, Southern American English, and prescriptive grammar.
You can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app.
Well, that has been our show this week. Our first show of the new year. Well, first recording of the new year.
Right.
Good to be back.
It's so good. We're back.
It was nice for the holidays, but it's good to be back.
Back in the saddle again.
You're going to say back in the sack.
Back in
Which
the sack.
sounds gross.
Back in the sack.
Do you have any final thoughts before we finish up?
If you're gonna murder people, maybe be low-key about it.
First of all, don't
also
murder people.
don't do that. But like, why are you gonna be like, I'm famous and also a murderer?
Yeah.
Stop that.
Yeah.
That's silly.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Just don't do that. Don't do any of those things.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more just like this at badtastepodcast.com. Woo. Our sound and editing is by Tiff Fullman. Our music is by Jason Zakshevsky, the Enigma. Yay. This has been the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.
10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.